if you have constraints, you have to work with constraints, and you have your solutions shape around those constraints in a way, right? So that means also one of the constraints that a startup has, as Leo mentioned, is also budgetary constraints. You can't just throw around with millions of dollars. That shapes, your algorithms being more efficient, trying to be compact. Maybe also how DeepSeek or others, basically from China and so on, were also constrained from the get-go. And this gives obviously rise to solutions that are, more, be it economically viable, if you want so, or also ecologically viable.
Bună dimineața și bine v-am găsit pe startup.ro. Vom avea astăzi o discuție despre AI și o vom avea în limba engleză. În primul rând pentru că aceasta e limba oficială a inteligenței artificiale în momentul de față și pentru că unele lucruri sunt mai simplu de explicat, iar cei care sunt interesați de inteligența artificială oricum urmăresc toate sursele internaționale. Așa că vom face un switch în engleză mental. And we're going to say good morning to Claudio Răveanu Condei, Leo, and Marius Constantin Dinu from Extensity AI, which is a company in the field of AI, researching automation in this field. Leo, Marius, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Then thank you for the official English switch.
And thank you for the invitation.
And thank you for the invitation, yes.
In the end, if YouTube added the automated English dubbing, it's easy. So you started Extensity AI roughly in 2024, end of 2023. But I wanted to start with a simple explanation for those who are listening or watching us. What does it do?
Should I go?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Extensity AI basically focuses on process automation and research automation. So we identified a gap in the inefficiencies basically in companies, be it large companies and probably also small companies can't really afford it actually. And we said that this is actually the main gap that we can fill. We are experts. We have people from artificial intelligence, PhD programs, and basically focused on researchers and focused on building these kinds of modules, models, and so on over the last years. But the processes are so chaotic and various, and still like a bit locked in time, if you want, so like 10 years before or 20 years. Because like a search engine, for instance, I mean, we all use it. We have also maybe a perplexity and so on, but like a search engine is not a process, right? It's just part of the process. And there are many other things that can be, in our opinion, automated, and we have to be connected. And that's kind of the mission of Extensity AI, using AI to also boost AI research and other kind of research fields.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I know that you met through your common interest in AI. Leo, I think you discovered Marius's work in AI research in April 2024. You had also your first invoice for the company, which is amazing. So how did you decide to work together after that moment when you discovered each other?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting story, I would say, and it started actually in 2023. So beginning of 2023, I met Marius. It was serendipitous, if you want me to say it in put it in a word. Essentially, I was on a Discord channel, and Marius puts his project there, so I was at the right moment and at the right time. I've seen it. Probably I would have been 2 minutes late, then I would have missed it. So I just seen it. I clicked on basically Marius asked for opinions, like what do people think and so on. So he tried to get some feedback to what he started. So I just click on that. It opened a page on a GitHub, so a platform for hosting software, and there was a GIF loading there, and I was just staring at that for like I think 3 to 5 minutes, and wheel spinning in my head, and I was just starting to realize that okay, so basically what he did is something that I had in mind. So, and I don't like to build from scratch things. I started then to dig a little bit deeper into the framework that he put out. So I just downloaded locally. I started to look over the code. I started to get a feeling for what he did. I didn't understand anything, but like for me, in 45 minutes, 1 hour of digging through, it was basically like 90% what I had in mind. And then I wrote him on LinkedIn. Like I'm a very crazy guy when it comes out to this, so I just quickly touch with him, contact him on LinkedIn. He was crazy enough to answer in like 15 minutes or something like that. Then we had the meeting, like our first call. It was late in that day, and we talked for like 2 hours, I think. And then 2 weeks later, or something like this, I just went to him in Austria. We rent a house summer, and like we just coded like crazy for 7 days almost. So that was basically our contact, if you want, in a
So then we
nutshell.
worked on a paper even together. So we have a paper
Yes.
published together. Did a lot of research for the next year. So also to mention that. And that was basically where also Extensity AI was kicked off. I mean, 2024. So like I said, almost a year later, after we met, we were really digging into this idea and really generalizing it. So to make it really for something that is future proof and is really expandable. And yeah, the rest is history.
So just
Love at first commit, as you
yeah.
say.
So just for the people to know, it's Extensity. It's not just another AI company, because we have dozens of maybe so-called AI companies that are basically taking the work that it's openly available and use it, but it's based on research. And I wanted to ask, what was in that research that attracted you, and that maybe it's now in Extensity AI?
Yeah. So basically, for me, it was so. Even in Timișoara, at some point, when I started to go into deep learning, I was looking for communities, and then I started to meet people. So this is an advice, if you want, that I would give to everyone. If you're trying to build something, just look for people that are doing this, and get in touch with them, and go join a community. And if there is none, then just do it yourself. So it's basically ingrained in my blood, if you want. What I liked first of all is that it's open source, and we're focused with Extensity AI on open source software. Everything it's up for people to use right now. If basically all our things can be developed with the same framework that we did. Some of the things are proprietary, obviously, so they are private. But like the engine, like the core of the software, is out there in the wild, so people can actually build things with it. So that was one of the things that was really important for me. And we can touch maybe on this later down the road, because to us, open source is definitely part of the mission. And we don't believe in closed source AI models, for instance. We want to champion for transparency, and to me, this was like great that we are. I mean, when I talked to Marius, like we were basically on the same page about having this transparency towards researchers, and more specifically towards developer that will use our work. I mean, it's easy to see like what's in our mind, right? It's like it's like a book that you go and open, and you can see exactly what are our thoughts. So that was very important for us. You can go right now, see what's in our head when we developed all of these things, and it's very transparent. You can maybe even find some bugs. So it's all out there. So that was for me a huge thing. And the second huge thing was that we were focused on research. So in my case, and also in Marius's case, both of us like have a very intimate, I would say, relationship with science. I love science in general. I read about science since a very young age. I was always into science, and I mean, we believed we basically joined our minds, and we started to think that probably in the future, the most valuable resource, like the gold, if you want, of the mind, would be this research. So the research will be the currency of the future. It's probably gonna be the only thing that, sure, you can automate it, but like the creativity would be in the hands of the of a researcher or of a team of research in general. So that's a very important, I would say, mission for us. These two, building open source software and trying to get into tapping into the future through research, which we consider that it's gonna be a currency in the future.
From Marius, you wanted to add something?
No, yeah, basically also the one thing that also tied to us together, like already from 2023 in our heads, when I started with it, but also with Leo when we continued, we already saw this trend of like plateauing, large language models and things like that. I mean, this was because it doesn't scale, like it scales currently, for instance, only with monetary aids or needs. So you have to like exponentially grow your budget to exponentially grow almost like linearly, basically grow your performance. And we saw like that was the idea of also this neuro-symbolic research that we focused on and put a heavy focus on, because there's like neural networks and symbolic systems basically combining the best of both worlds. That was also like, especially when talking about open source software, we thought about how we can build systems that can reuse actually even other tools and software systems that don't have to like learn everything in the weight space of a model or something like that.
And before going into the practical applications of your research, of your company, somehow I wanted to, because you mentioned the neuro-symbolic AI platform, I wanted for the people who are listening, for you to explain what's behind this term. What is neuro-symbolic AI?
So symbolic systems are actually since the 50s or so, 60s, when computer science really was born, if you want. So the modern computer science idea, especially then when artificial intelligence and so on, these terms were coined. And basically, you all know it if you played ever a video game or anything like that. I mean, AI is a bit, my opinion right now, because it became so popular recently again, is a bit messed up with the terminologies. So we're pretending that AI came up new, but it's actually here since, like I said, the 60s and so on. Because artificial intelligence, everything that simulates in a way intelligent behavior, whatever. Like I said, computer games, you're playing with someone that pretends to be a person and so on, and has a sort of a scripted behavior in the past. Nowadays, it became in the, if you want, so 90s around, this kind of connectionist models more popular. Connectionist just means neural networks. You have this kind of like neurons and connections of neurons between them. And we found out a way how we can data-driven only basically push data through a system, give it just a target. We want to have this as, I don't know, a result. And then it figures out how the connections have to be, tweaked, if you want, so that this result comes out, a classification or whatever, cats versus dogs and so on, right? So this is a data-driven connectionist approach. This is the neural symbolic, if you want, so spectral. And now the idea is, instead of, the trend for the last years, since this 2014 basically breakthroughs in computer vision, was throw everything at the neural network and it will basically data-driven learn something. In 2017, we basically saw large language models coming with attention is all you need and so on the horizon. And basically we just blindly throw data at a model and then hope that it figures it out. It turns out that apart from being inefficient, machine learning has been always about also efficient machine learning. Is that because in theory we can always talk about giving infinite compute, infinite data, it will converge to a perfect solution. It's perfect, it's in theory nice, but in practice machine learning is also about computer science, and it's about how can we make it in our lifespan, if you want, so right, to happen. So and this is basically against that trend, just throwing even, let's say, a calculator. You don't want to learn 1 + 1 and all the infinite numbers in all directions and hope that the model kind of figures it out or is correct. you want precision and you want efficiency to have. So that means instead of learning a calculator behavior, addition and subtraction, all the other operations, they are already like built in a sub 1 watt, small pocket calculator if you want to, right? Why not use a program that already does that much more with much more precision and much more reliable and so on, and more efficient, as I said. So the idea of this kind of neuro-symbolic combination is taking the advantages of classical programming and classical symbolic systems and mixing in now these neural networks and finding the best of both ways, how to efficiently build new systems that can imitate intelligent behavior.
And just to add to your answer, because you mentioned, and it's not the first time in an interview that I hear this, that AI is not new. The research was there and evolving through the years and decades. What changed basically in the last few years that made us put AI as the term that it's all revolving, everything is revolving around AI? What actually changed?
So main drivers of modern AI systems are compute and data. AI, or let's be more specific, machine learning algorithms, specifically with neural networks, deep learning, and so on. So you can really think about a Venn diagram where we have all machine learning algorithms and a subset of them being deep learning and a subset of that being, for instance, large language models. What your best large language model transformer is worthless if there is not enough data for it to kick off the initial weights and parameters. Also compute-wise, I mean, we had perceptron and so on in the 80s and so forth. Concepts of it. We showed that in very small, like 2 neuron settings and so on, you could learn something if you wanted to call it learning back then. But it was like literally like I mean, that didn't scale, right? So now we talk about billions of parameters and so on. We're in the billions or trillions even realm right now. So what changed is compute, which was obviously with NVIDIA and so on, that enabled a lot of stuff. Computer vision did a lot of work in this, especially in computer vision, because they kind of enabled also parallelization and matrix multiplication and computation. Back then it was with AlexNet, for instance. They had to really split the network apart and train it, like split it apart on 2 different graphics cards. And they had a lot of it's always a trade-off between engineering and new ideas of algorithms. Obviously, algorithms played a huge role also. I mean, it would be understating saying that there has nothing happened since then. But the main drivers were compute and data, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I would also like to
Yeah.
maybe quickly add something to what Mario said. That's basically what kickstarted everything. And then I would say it's also like this ChatGPT moment, right? In which you basically get like a general purpose AI that it's starting to pervade like the life of everyone around you, including my parents, your parents, and everyone's parents, right? So like it's so easy to use that's what I think contributed a lot. And probably the main reason that I think that's, at least my opinion, I think one of the main reasons like this happened was the realization that there is a lot of text out there. So basically was the realization that, okay, I mean, we targeted computer vision so far, but what if we tackle something that is fundamental to us as a human beings, which is language? So we're tackling language because language allows us to speak, allows us to express our thoughts. And where there is a lot of language right now, it's on the internet. So why don't we just download all the internet and just train a huge a text model on it, the way Marius described? So like all these realizations were already in place from computer vision, like scaling, NVIDIA, all of these things were there. It was just the insight that why don't we just tackle language in general? Because language seems like a fundamental bridge between all these other domains. So even when you see something, you basically attach like a symbol to it. And that's a very powerful idea, and it proved to work out. And it's the way we interact with the systems, right? It's like you're basically chatting with them. Now you can even speak to them because all these modalities right now mixed together.
Yeah.
So you can take a photo and then ask, what is this? Please help me. Or you can directly tell it. So I think that was the realization that actually not vision is important right now. And actually what's more general would be solving language. And it's not solved. It's between quotes. It's not solving. It's not solved yet. But it's a very good approximation, which has got better and better. Like the most they scale these things.
And it was not obvious. Linguists back then, in
Yeah.
2010 and so on, they were actually contesting, so that we will never have a system that, language is not just statistics. I mean, partially true, yes, but a great part of the language is statistics, as you can see that we can fill up books now with generated content.
It's always like the experts that don't see it. It's very interesting that the experts, the linguists which studied language their entire lives, they didn't see this possibility. Not all of them, but like most of them that were purely trained theoretical linguists, they didn't necessarily see this emerging.
This is kind of a bit our mission, what we see at Extensity AI. Interdisciplinary research can also be part of is part of our mission, because experts have usually a problem of having this isolation of like the silo behavior, because you're an expert in your domain, right? And maybe if I present you something from a chemist or so, I mean, I personally don't understand amino acid sequences, right? So I can't read them. I can't, and I would never write a scientific paper about it because I couldn't really trust what I'm writing there, right? But it's the other way also around, right? Chemist might not never work with me or so because he doesn't understand what deep learning and so on. And there is a domain gap between us. So basically to break down this wall, we need also systems and platforms that help us to, kind of translate and mitigate this domain gap.
So going to the practical application of Extensity AI, let's talk about the ways that companies can use Extensity, because you already have clients. What can they do? What are the tasks that can be solved and automated through Extensity AI?
For instance, one of our clients generates an entire book, really end to end. So the idea here is to also here tear down the complexity of like the book publishing process is a very complex process. It might seem nowadays that Amazon and Co are globally distributed, that it seems so seamless for us to buy, but actually the process behind it is not so simple. Part of that process is obviously the literature research. Part of the process is also the writing process and so on, and really ideation and all that stuff. And which would, even for a trained eye and so on, it might take weeks. If you, for instance, if you're, let's say, a ghostwriter, right, and you basically get the materials, the raw materials from someone, it might take you weeks to months to really understand the person's domain, because you can't write about something you don't understand, right? Or at least with sufficient quality that your client might want. That process, for instance, can be compressed. That can be with let's say, story editor AI, which is a product that one of our clients is launching now. You can help in the ideation phase and the concept of the entire book, basically really the structure, the different, the initial content on all the pages and everything. And of course you can interact with it and then write also manually stuff, or it's not about just replacing the entire writing process, but it's basically about augmenting it and having multiple ways of thinking. You always can see these AI solutions as tools that enable you new features, right? It took you in the past months to get to one book. Now technically you can in a week have 5 books in different variations. Do you want a children's book? Do you want an expert's book? Or do you want, and you basically can ideate over that and even draft different kinds of versions in the very, like, literally sub an hour. So basically these are capabilities that we fully automated with our AI architecture and with our framework. They're also, and it is also very interesting for us because we as researchers were dealing daily with information streams of being papers, being in articles and so on, and bringing long form content in a coherent way is basically the gold standard where to start from when talking about research automation. And apart from that, we have other project where we have speech-to-speech modulation, like a RAG system, if you want, so we can ask questions about study plans and so on, or also in the IP protection realm. And we're launching our own platform now. So this is basically, we're currently in the alpha test phase, inviting in a closed test phase people that give feedback now on what, how our research automation processes help researchers and research teams to ideate and conduct much more effective research.
And what was the problem, the issue that researchers, for example, because you talked about automating this kind of work, what were the problems that they had in writing studies, books, and so on, that can be solved to this AI automation?
So it's I think writing is not the main problem, because it's time consuming, yes, but it's only part of the solution. I think a greater problem that has to be solved or has to be addressed is really the ideation phase, the structure of things, and also the literature that you're covering. So these are the like, especially in if you think about in research, before even starting any kind of line of code, it would be, as Leo said earlier, he doesn't like to start from scratch, in the sense of, like, why always reinvent the wheel? You always have to have an idea already a priori what is out there, and then you go from there, and then have a good draft, or maybe a initial structure, and then you focus on what matters to you most. And for researchers, for instance, what matters most is really this, having all informations available, and then basically understanding how they're connected to each other, and building then your new methodology that you're putting on top, if you want. So at least from my perspective.
I may simplify. Of course, journalism is not a research. It has the research phase, of course, but it's not as big of a research as academic studies, for example. But I can tell the people who are watching or listening us how we are using basically AI to help us. I mean, after this conversation 2 years or 3 years ago, I would go and spend 2-3 hours just writing the transcript, understanding what you said and how you said, and taking all the information and trying to find the structure for the article. And now I am doing this, but I'm also helping. I'm also helped by some AIs for transcripts. I don't know. I'm asking the AI, just give me 20 good quotes. Maybe I missed something from what you said, or so yeah, it's a helping process. And I wanted to ask you, because we have on the market, let's say, the well-known general AIs. I don't know, the ChatGPTs of the world, the Claudes, Perplexity, and so on. Why would a company researcher use Extensity and not use what it's already known and available, the first thought in your head? I'm going to use, I don't know, Claude to do this for me. What's the difference in the product itself?
So it's the same as I said a bit earlier about search engines. Like it's part of the process, but it's not it's not the process itself. So, and that's a bit the focus where we put the focus of our company, at least. Yes, there are tools, and also in our tool set we even can use several kinds of models. As you mentioned Claude, you mentioned the a GPT family of models. There might be also Gemini and even open source DeepSeek and so on, other models. All of them are supported basically for our unified interface, and then we have an engine for each and every of them, and we can test their specific traits and qualities in different scenarios. The point is not only, like I said, this is only part of the game, and the tonality is oftentimes, like for general purpose questions, yes. You also have to think about these tools and statistics. What is the most abundant information available? If you think about marketing and other things, or you said like transcripts, etc., great, perfect tool maybe to quickly go there, throw it in, and then get a quick reply back. If you think about more the intricacies of amino acid bondings and so on, and basically how or you might think from material science perspective, robotics perspective, or from any kind of research that focuses on the math, focuses on the technical terms and so on there, and obviously on the technical tonality, because you at the end of the day also want to not just get your fluff answer back with a lot of buzzwords, because that's what's happening when you go more specific into the domain. You will have then this soup of fluffy words, but no substance behind it, right? And this is exactly where we see Extensity AI that also, first of all, tunes the tonality correct when writing something, but beyond just the tonality and beyond the just output of the language model, for instance, there is a lot of things, connection between informations, ontologies basically of how papers and so knowledge graphs basically, how things are connected to each other, how literature, citations, all the information that is related and important connects. And this you don't get by just your standard off the shelf chatbot, if you want. So and it's not about the chatbot at the end, because where we're heading towards as a company is we are doing right now research augmentation, but we're heading towards research automation, meaning that there is an end-to-end process starting from the literature research, going over the ideation and hypothesis creation, going over the experiment design and really creating how you want to have your experiment protocol, and then even executing that protocol. So that means the full containerization experiment running and the simulation of the experiment, and then collecting all findings, and then you start writing and basically tying all things together back. And then you start communication phase. So meaning that you write a patent, you write whatever kind of export document format you need to show to your C-levels or to publish on different venues and conferences. But the point is, writing is, as you see in this process, entire process is just one part of it or one piece of it. And even, the specific models and properties are just a sub solution of it. You need for really conducting research, you need the entire spectrum. And this is exactly what Extensity covers. And if we succeed in this mission, how we proceed, it's not about just right now, these processes can be done by large corporations usually. I mean, they have the budget, as soon as you start having some money to spare, you start a research department, etc. But small to medium-sized companies can't really afford that because they're just tied up with their daily business and just serving the customer's needs. But imagine this could be as a platform put down. You basically can enable this as a simulation platform for new ideas and research to the masses, if you want, so right, to even the small and medium-sized companies, where they just conduct an experiment, and it's not about millions, it's about hundreds of thousands or thousands of euros, basically what costs an experiment instead of as we know it nowadays.
I'm curious for the clients you have right now, how's the process of until you sign the contract and you start working with them? How do you convince and demonstrate the need for them to use your product?
Should I, or maybe Leo also, if he wants?
Okay, no, go ahead. It's fine.
So the process is usually initial contact. I mean, it's about trust building, right? That's the most important thing. So that's one of our, as we said earlier, we set a lot on open source because transparency builds also trust at the same time, right? You see what you get in a way, and then research basically is a discipline where you have to, or basically when you publish findings and so on, it actually reaches out to a lot of people. So we also had actually the inverse. We had a lot of contacts from the from even larger corporations coming to us and asking about meetings, asking about initial ideation and basically how to move forward in this field, because you're working in a very high discipline field, and it's important for them to also look a bit ahead. Now, from the initial, say first leads, first meetings, and so on, it's about just doing workshops and stuff like that with them. So you sit together, you look over their problems, their data, etc., and just try to consult and help them a bit out in basically talking about their problems, their needs, because at the end of the day, just selling your solution is ineffective, or is just marketing then basically. So the idea is more like try to focus on the problems, what are at hand, try to give as best as you can see, and limitations as transparent as you understand back, and then basically they will see. I mean, sometimes they say, okay, that's good enough, and they are optimistic, start with other companies or whatever, try to build it themselves. Usually that's if they're not fully committed, that's kind of the half-baked solution. If you don't really hire in scientists and people that really understand this and really understand are fully committed to the mission that you're trying to build, then it's going to be a costly endeavor. You'll probably waste some hundreds of thousands to millions, and then you come back and look and try again back to the market and try to buy off-the-shelf solutions or integrate with third parties. But from that phase afterwards, it's usually they come back and say, hey, actually that sounds interesting, and hey, can you help us out with a prototype, something like that. And this is how we start, and we do sort of a proof of concept, but then we do basically an estimation of what we believe that the project might take, and so on. So this is how we kind of bootstrapped ourselves in the past. But now we're going also with our solution that we're launching into more the SaaS model. So basically we have a software as a service. We see basically for all research and research departments and so on, the needs to have this kind of like platform where you can easily just subscribe and integrate with your research processes that you have in the company.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's a lot of workshopping, as you mentioned, consultancy, to say it like this, because I'm always reading these reports about how C-levels are interested in AI. They want to implement AI, but I think it's an issue of sometimes not knowing how to take the AI and use it inside. Maybe you understand that you have a problem, you have issues in the company that can maybe solved by AI, but you don't know how to do it. So it's you are basically entering this process of explaining them how to take their problem and maybe solve it.
Exactly. There's a problem with this hype. What happened also around artificial intelligence? Most technologies always have this kind of Gartner hype cycle, and there was overemphasis and over optimism, basically, and expectations. Also from the big ones. I mean, think about all the commercials that Google, Apple, all of them promised to you, Apple Intelligence and so on, now how they withdraw with some of their features because they see they can't really rely on what the output is. And they all got trapped into this, but this created kind of this also for C-levels, and everyone created this ideation. We're just 1 year away from, getting this done. Next year we're just 1 year away from getting it done, and this is just prolonging it too much now, and then now it feels like this depression again, feeling like we'll never solve it, it doesn't work and whatever, and then it's just trash and so on. What comes out of it is the normal progression. It's going to scientists that understand how technology works were never overhyping, or at least the ones that you can give great credit to, and you just follow basically through with your research. What are the limitations, and the next steps, and what you have to tackle at.
I also want to add maybe like a new angle to what Marius already said. So when it comes to C-levels, I mean, I worked for Amazon in the past, so it was not exactly in touch with C-levels, but I've seen a lot of management decisions being made, and there is a lot of pressure that C-levels are getting on their shoulders because they see all of this happening around them, and then the natural question, maybe from a CEO like let's say Andy Jassy from Amazon, is like, why don't we use this internally? And then there is like top-down pressure that it's happening inside companies that we have to use this. then this propagates and diffuses among smaller management ranks, and they are starting to, okay, we have to use this because they will also get like a boost, right? If there is a project that's successful inside the company, it can also spread like a virus towards other departments. So then you get a boost that, look, we did that. So there's also like this angle, and then I would say middle management is tied to figuring this out. They are going to ChatGPT as you just asked before, like, okay, they are general purpose models. They are trying this directly in ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Anthropic on all of these models, and then they see it's really bad. Then they are pushing their engineers to like, but you got to figure it out because the other company already has this. So why cannot we do this? And they would try this, and they would keep trying. That there's a lot of mess happening here. The reporting is bad. So like, the larger the company, the more it's like this. You've seen the layoffs. A lot of these things happen recently in big corporations, specifically because of this. Specifically because models like DeepSeek took $5 million to train on a least performant clusters of GPUs, and Meta is paying basically $5 million for one management person, senior management individual. So then you're starting to ask real questions like, what the hell are we doing here? So my angle from this story, working for a big tech company, is that there's a lot of waste. When you have a lot of resources, and that's what I always like. I mean, if you look at my trajectory, I was basically a combination of working in startups and working for the big tech. So what I've seen is that, like, the smaller the teams, the more efficient they are, and especially if you build a team that's very, very independent and the people are very, very good, that there are not miscommunications and things can happen really, really fast, like in a hackathon style, if you want to think about it. This can happen in big corporations too, because they incentivize smaller teams, but there's not enough freedom for you to experiment the way you would do, and there's not enough pressure because you always have the safety net of, I can go right now and bootstrap another virtual instance with 8 GPUs that are high performant, and like nobody cares because Amazon or Meta or whoever is paying for them, and you basically don't care about the waste that you're generating. You're no longer efficient, and all these things would start to come back to you at some point, because startups are basically, they have to deal with this problem that you don't have right now.
Yeah, it's complicated to say. You mentioned DeepSeek. It's complicated to say we can develop without $3 billion, like, I don't know, OpenAI. It can be developed with a way smaller amount right now. Going into the present and the future of Extensity AI, from a more practical and businessy part, where are you right now in terms of numbers, clients, income, and plans for 2025?
So we're basically reaching our 1 million mark in revenue. We've, like I said, we've bootstrapped ourselves so far. We've currently in the evaluation and launching our basically a SaaS platform for research augmentation around literature research, document generation, and so on. And we're going towards the next phases are for us exactly to tune basically the models to have more the scientific tonality, to tune also build out our own infrastructure, but also basically going towards conducting the entire experiment. So our platform will have, at the end of the day, really an end-to-end process where you start off with the initial literature, and then really have an experiment, a hypothesis to create an experiment, and then basically collect all the findings of that experiment. This could be literally like trying to find the more efficient error correction rate for, let's say, quantum machine learning, or to whatever, think of amino acid sequences that required, and also a simulator basically that says, okay, these protein foldings work or don't work according to to the experiment environment. And then it's the writing phase again, as we said, and all of these basically will tie together in having an end-to-end research automation process throughout the year. We have several milestones. One part is basically connecting search better. One part is integrating data sets and models and so on. And there is like basically a roadmap for different features and different kinds of requirements that we have to really close the loop, if you want. So, because at the end of the day, it would be ideal for us to say like, try this kind of experiment with this kind of like context and literature, and then you could spin it up and have 10,000 instances pursuing the same, exploring the space of possibilities and solutions. So this is kind of like the roadmap ahead. And yeah, like I said, we have feature milestones and releases throughout the year.
And from a business model part, it's going to be a transition to a SaaS model or hybrid model from what you have also today to also a SaaS model.
Exactly, because the idea is that scales obviously better. We also have more clients that we can serve, and because obviously a B2B, as we talked about earlier, having these workshops and so on, that scales only with human resources. You have to be present, or Leo or someone has to be present at every meeting, and that obviously doesn't allow us also as a company. The idea is here we're trying to grow also the team. We're trying this year to double our team size. It's also where we're seeking for investments and so forth, because we want to move fast, basically to really also deliver more value to our clients and customer base, because there are many things also in research that we have. So there's like that was the milestones that I explained to you and the business model, but there's also like in research that we have goals going towards ontology creation, going towards type safety when generating stuff and so on, going towards many other things that we're working currently in the background that people don't see yet, but they will. But all of them obviously require resources and require a bit more than at a different scale than we are today. So that's why we have to expand.
And in terms of, because you mentioned the investment, in terms of investment, what are you looking for?
We're looking currently for a very fast round, because we are focusing right now on getting a quick small team that integrates this end-to-end, that completes this end-to-end pipeline. So that means in the 500,000 to a million range to really, like I said, quickly scale up. And next year will be more on the business growth and basically expansion towards other countries.
In the end, we're in Europe, so because we are reaching the end of our talk, I have to tackle this issue: AI in Europe and the position of Europe in the AI field. How do you look at this? Because everybody says, okay, AI companies, the biggest AI companies are in the US. Now China has entered the game. In Europe, maybe we talk about Mistral as a bigger company. How do you see it? Basically, it's gonna be a bumpier road for you ahead, coming from this space.
I see it more as Leo also mentioned it earlier. If you have constraints, you have to work with constraints, and you have your solutions shape around those constraints in a way, right? So that means also one of the constraints that a startup has, as Leo mentioned, is also budgetary constraints. You can't just throw around with millions of dollars. That shapes, your algorithms being more efficient, trying to be compact. Maybe also how DeepSeek or others, basically from China and so on, were also constrained from the get-go. And this gives obviously rise to solutions that are, more, be it economically viable, if you want so, or also ecologically viable. And this is kind of going to be for us, the way how we expand. We have a lot of data privacy and focus in Europe, which means on-premise, right? That means basically solutions have to work at the same quality level or better as solutions that are currently just centralized in OpenAI or others, right? So you will have to, find the right partner, work with him together, and then basically deliver an on-premise solution with exactly the same quality needs, but with the privacy that he has full control of the environment. And there are other things that are happening, also dynamics now, political dynamics in the US. We're also considering, obviously, having a subsidiary in the US. We're expanding because we have our headquarters is in Austria, but we have one subsidiary in Romania, where also Leo is. And we will have down the road also one in the US, because you still want to serve the English-speaking market, especially the very homogeneous one. So there might be different solutions for different regions if you want to.
I also want to add maybe something. So there is this. I mean, whenever I hear Europe and AI, I know what's coming. Basically, that's always the case. So to me, at least, I mean, the way I see the things, for instance, even if Mistral is from Europe, let's not forget who invested in Mistral, which is a US-based huge investment firm.
Correctly.
It was Anderson Horowitz, basically.
Anderson,
so it's a huge commitment from US again into a basic European startup. I honestly believe that there are trade-offs. You have to think about trade-offs. So US is always about this founder mode idea. I mean, I'm on Twitter and I see this bubble and this echo chamber that it's happening in Silicon Valley, and it's nice. I mean, Silicon Valley has an amazing culture, if you ask me, and it's not something that you can reproduce probably anywhere. So it's an amazing place to be and build things. So that's one of their basically huge assets. But the trade-off becomes when you have this founder mode engagement and idea, and you're facing this other problem that you move fast and break things. So I mean, look, we don't know the political game, how this will unfold in 10 years from now. All we know right now is that AI is unfolding very, very fast. There are no safeguards right now. And what if 10 years from now, everyone will look and simply by virtue of Europe being slow, the way we always call it, I call it every time, Europe is slow. But by virtue of being slow, it's actually having an implicit safety net built into it, because it's not moving that fast. And it won't break the things the way probably US will break things, because if you look at the US right now with this current administration, they are pushing LLMs to departments, to governments, to everywhere. So where's the safety net there? I mean, we are working in research. We know how this tool works. Where is the safety? And this question would not go away. So now you can say that maybe the European Council is more conservative in how they approach things. This is not inherently a bad thing, but you're losing obviously you're losing the short game, because look, Mistral again went into the headlines because they released Le Chat. So Le Chat basically it's 2 years late, right? I mean, Le Chat is basically ChatGPT for Europe. But it's late. But look, people still love it. I mean, so I would say that people are always trying things out, and I don't think that because something went out more recently, they won't try something else which can be better. Look at DeepSeek, what happened with DeepSeek. So everyone used DeepSeek and it's using DeepSeek, and it's because DeepSeek is good. So it's not about who came first in the end. It's who has the best thing, and that's probably what will contribute, and I think Europe can contribute to this.
Marius, Leo, thank you so much for this conversation, and how I would say as an internal joke from us as at Startup.io, because everybody, for this deep dive into AI, because everyone is using this deep dive term that was coined inside ChatGPT and everyone is using on LinkedIn, but it was really a fascinating talk about AI, about what you're doing, and I hope to hear more from you at Extensity AI.
Thank you very much for having us here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for listening to us. If you reached this part, the end, you are really interested in AI, and I am proud of you. I am Vlad Andriescu. You can read us, interact with us at startup.ro. Thank you so much and have a great day.